The rain didn't fall. It hurled. It came at an angle that turned umbrellas into bad ideas and made trash lids rattle like they had something to say. Wind shoved paper cups into corners and left them there. The city smelled like wet metal and fried food giving up. I was locking the front door of our building, the kind of brick that knows its own weight, when I saw him curled beneath the faded awning of the bodega, a nervous comma of fur pressed to the tiles. He wasn't small, not really, but fear can shrink anything. He trembled in a way that made my own shoulders tense. The collar looked decent, but had no tags, just a salt line where winter had licked. People were rushing past, heads down, bodies narrowed to the space between raindrops. I held the door a little longer than necessary and said it out loud, because sometimes things need to be spoken into permission. "In here, buddy." He glanced at the open doorway like it was a test and then sprinted on quiet nails. The no pet sign flapped on its string, bravely pretending it mattered. I led him to the laundry room off the lobby. Tile floor, radiator that sang high when it felt seen, shelves that used to hold detergent before everyone started buying pods like candy. I took an old blue towel from the cabinet, the one I'd meant to throw out 3 times and never did. He let me press it to his coat, ribs lifting under my palm like he was remembering what warmth did. "You're okay," I said, because it felt like the only thing a person could say to a body that had weather on it. He licked salt off my wrist like it was soup. I set a stainless steel mixing bowl near the radiator and filled it in the bathroom sink, warming the tap until the steam looked like mercy. He drank as if the bowl might vanish if he blinked. The building's lobby clock above the mailboxes is one of those stubborn old faces that pretends usefulness. It likes to stop at 3:17 when the humidity changes or the moon does something it refuses to explain. Tonight it was stuck there, the hands weirdly confident like an actor who forgot his lines but not his posture. I posted a found dog note on the neighborhood app because that's what we do now, write to strangers we might already know, and taped a paper sign to the bodega's window that said the same in thicker letters: "Found dog, brown, white chest, come to 112. Gus, the bodega owner, slid a spare leash across the counter and said, "You're going to need this," like he was loaning me a length of patience. I made him a nest by the baseboard. He circled twice and then folded in like he had been engineered for the space between water and a wall. The rain kept beating its hands on the awning. In the hallway, the fluorescent light hummed the same note it always hums when I'm too tired to fix it. Sometimes you live with a sound until you forget it's actually a complaint. He slept. The building did too, or the good part of it, the part that calls me, "Hey Mike," through the door when the radiator knocks or the shower decides to sing in the wrong key. I'm 32, and my job is to make an old building think it's still reliable. It's not glamorous. It's screws and gaskets and valves pretending to be worse than they are. It's chasing leaks and cajoling heat, clearing lint and coaxing drains. It is, on nights like this, holding something shaking and saying, "You're okay," until it might be. Before we get into it, tell me where you're watching from and if you've ever had a night where a stranger decided you were the safest door. Drop it in the comments and follow the channel for more stories like this. Small emergencies with bigger endings. I live in the basement apartment off the boiler room, which sounds like a cautionary tale until you learn what it feels like to be inside a machine and be allowed to keep it going. My landlord, Ms. Rosen, owns the building and half the cranky opinions in it. 2 months ago, she let our gas company inspect and note, which is code for someone looked at things and said we should do something about that, and then we didn't. The detectors in the hall are older than some of the tenants. They work if you blow across their faces like birthday candles. I've been sending emails with photos and strongly recommend replacement in the subject line long enough for my phone to autocomplete the sentence. Her reply is a phrase that sounds like a lullaby if you've lost your dictionary. Next inspection. I have a history with dogs. And weather. When I was 9, our family dog, Luna, slipped out during a storm that pulled gutters off like bandages. I chased her with my shoelaces slapping through puddles, my father shouting behind me not because he was angry, but because fear makes volume sound like safety. We found her under a neighbor's porch, eyes gleaming like tiny moons, too afraid to come to hands that had always fed her. I still remember the weight of her when she let me lift her, water pouring off her like she had been keeping it safe for the whole block. Maybe that's why, when I hold a shivering creature, my chest remembers that boy and the porch and the complicated pride of my father's face when I finally laid her on our kitchen rug. Or maybe dogs are just better at telling people how to be people than we are. The dog slept through the worst of the storm like the body does when it's been told it can. In the morning, Mrs. Carter from 2B knocked on the laundry room door and slid a Tupperware of chicken and rice across the floor like she was sneaking food to a prisoner in a movie. "For your guest," she said, patting her hair like it had done something wrong while she slept. Mrs. Carter is the kind of neighbor who knows the floor plan of your grief without ever having asked to visit. The dog ate as if the world had just agreed to continue. He wagged his tail in a way that made the blue towels look like purpose instead of cloth. There was no tag on the collar, only a quiet confidence and the kind of patience that usually belongs to nurses and bartenders. By late morning, a woman stood in the lobby with rain still in her hair. "Oh, thank God," she said before I could even ask. "He bolted when the door slammed, and then I lost him in the wind." Her voice was bright panic. Her eyes were sleepwalking. She knelt and the dog trotted to her with a dignity that made the whole thing less embarrassing for both of them. "His name is Scout," she said into his neck. "I'm Mrs. Patel. We live on Maple 3 blocks over. Thank you." "Thank you." I passed to the leash and felt ridiculous relief. She put a 20 in my hand. I refused. She left me with something better. The blue towel, rolled and still damp. "Keep it," she said. "If he visits again, he'll know he's allowed." When they left, I tucked the towel on the shelf above the breaker panel, where my secrets live, and opened my email because virtue only carries you so far when the boiler hums like a man with a sore throat. I typed, attached 2 pictures of the gas line elbow that has looked too pitted for too long, and sent, "Odor of mercaptan, brief and intermittent, detectors are beyond recommended life, strongly recommend replacement, schedule licensed tech for full line inspection, including boiler room elbow."
The app replied the way apps do when the human behind them isn't ready to. "Received. We'll address this at the next inspection." Which is to say, not today. That has been my winter. Holding back cold on one side and bureaucracy on the other, feeling like a man wedged in a doorway while weather presses with its shoulder. Scout started adding us to his route. He'd stop with Mrs. Patel in the afternoons on the way home from the park, and I'd bring the stainless steel bowl out and set it beside the radiator like I was saving him a seat. The no pets sign developed a tilt that made it look less sure of itself. Mrs. Patel would chat with Mrs. Carter about grocery prices and weather and the kind of tiny politics that make buildings either neighbors or mistakes. Scout would lean into my knee and smell like grass. We made a strange little ceremony of it. Bandana? Not yet. He had the blue towel in the building and a red one at home. Names become official when you have more than one towel. The smell in the basement came and went like a shy guest. If you don't know gas, they add mercaptan to it, a sulfur compound to make it smell like bad eggs, like something your body is trained to reject. I'd catch a whisper of it sometimes when the wind shifted and the boiler kicked. Check the valve. Check the union. Run a finger under the joint and see if the dust sticks to the oil. A man can justify anything if he can call it checking. I added 2 more emails to Ms. Rosen's inbox with increasingly uncompromising subject lines. I taped a new 9-volt battery into the detector at the end of the hall and felt like a doctor putting a smiley face sticker on a broken leg. On the 13th night after Scout slept by the radiator, I went to bed early. There's a special kind of tired the city hands you when it's been wet all day, the kind that sits on your shoulders like a neighbor's toddler and refuses to get down. I woke up with my heart racing and my brain not caught up yet. It took me half a second to realize the sound wasn't in my head. Someone, or something, was pounding my front door. At first, I thought it was a fist. Then I heard the nails, 4 at a time, scraping, frantic. A voice, too, not the kind you use for words. I stumbled from bed, my sock catching on the rip in the hallway rug like it does every third Tuesday, and opened the door. Scout launched past me and then came back because he's that kind of gentleman. He grabbed my pajama pants with his teeth and tugged, then let go and sprinted toward the stairwell and then back again. He did it twice, then 3 times, half growl, half cry. "What?" I started, and then the smell hit me. Not strong, not yet. A breath of rotten egg and something metallic and stale. The hallway light hummed. The clock above the mailboxes read 3:17, and for once I was certain it was telling me the truth. Mrs. Patel stood at the entrance, coat over pajamas, hair under a hoodie, breathing like someone who'd run in the cold and didn't know she could anymore. "He dragged me out of bed," she said, hands on her knees. "He wouldn't let me go back into my apartment. He barked me down the stairs." "Okay," I said, and that's when my body switched from human to protocol. You can be scared and know what to do. The two are not exclusive. Okay. You don't turn on lights when you smell gas. You don't touch electrical switches. Electricity makes sparks without asking you, and sparks love gas like moths love poor decisions. You keep the doors open. You keep your hands simple.
I ran to the basement door and stopped myself from flipping the switch out of habit. I have a flashlight clipped to the breaker box for a reason that had never felt less theoretical. The mercaptan hit harder on the first landing, like a warning someone had turned the volume on. I killed the sub-panel for the boiler room and the basement hall. The building exhaled. Somewhere up above, water moved through a pipe in that chugging way it does when someone has flushed something that doesn't like the new arrangement. My phone chirped and then gave up because the basement laughs at the idea of cell service. I ran back up, took the main floor and the sidewalk-like stairs and dialed as I moved. First, the gas company's emergency line. Then, 911, to wake strangers who know how to turn a building into a good decision. I said the address, and the smell, and the line in the elbow, and the phrase, possible leak, enough times to make my mouth believe me. "Knock every door," the dispatcher said. "Keep people away from switches. Keep them warm. Do not go back down." I didn't argue, even though my bones wanted to run toward the problem. This is why they train you, or why you train yourself, so you can do the less dramatic, more useful thing when everything inside you wants to throw a cape over your pajamas and pretend you are enough. I pounded. "Mike, super, gas smell? Out now." Doors opened fast. Shoes and hands and coats appeared in wrong combinations, and that was fine. People who had never spoken to each other carried each other's pets down the stairs. Gray the cat rode inside a hoodie like a judge. Mrs. Carter appeared with a wool blanket she'd owned since the 70s and wrapped it around a little boy so his panic had something to do with its hands. A grad student from 4C took Ms. Wong from 3D in a careful scoop like he'd learned that move in a different life and never thought he'd need it here. Scout danced a chaotic figure 8 between ankles until I moored him with the blue towel as an improvised leash. He leaned his weight into mine, and the message was as clear as any human sentence. Don't go down there. I didn't. We spilled onto the sidewalk like a parade no one had planned. Rain had turned into the kind of mist that coats eyelashes and makes everything look sentimental. I did a head count I wasn't sure I had the math for. The clock in the lobby still said 3:17, because of course it did. My phone said 3:24. The gas truck rolled in at 3:28, siren politely silent, lights gently insistent. The fire department tucked their rig behind like an older sibling who was done arguing. 2 techs in reflective jackets moved through the lobby like they'd rehearsed it, and they had in other buildings, other nights. One carried a meter that is the kind of machine that reminds you of science when emotions are trying to bully you. He said ppm, and I caught high and good call and shut it down.
The union at the elbow on the boiler line had given up its integrity at the exact combination of temperature and neglect that makes men who do my job groan in the grocery line when they remember the sentence, "next inspection." It hadn't been a massive leak yet. It had been a whisper that had chosen a voice and come looking for lungs. 10 more minutes, one of the techs said to me, and a spark in the wrong place, half the block would be standing where you are, but madder.
I looked down at Scout, who looked up at me like he didn't know about blocks or elbows or mercaptan and didn't care. He cared that he had dragged his person down the stairs and found the other person who liked him and made noise until someone did the thing that followed the noise. Neighbors grumbled in that half-joking way people use when they've been pulled out of bed into a street and don't know where to put their adrenaline. Someone handed me a thermos of something I didn't drink and a handful of thanks I didn't deserve. The techs turned things off and put signs where signs have to go. Yellow tape, stern words, the kind of posturing that keeps people alive when they want to be curious. The building sighed again. We made a night camp of cars and porches and a coffee shop that opened at 4 because Bread doesn't care about emergencies. We stood in borrowed coats and slippers and told each other better lies than the boiler had chosen. I kept one hand on the blue towel and one hand on the idea that I didn't live under a giant mistake. Dawn has a way of forgiving nights like that. It slid down the street and made the tape look less accusatory. The gas company gave us back a portion of our apology in the form of a man with a clipboard and a speech that started with, "This will be shut down until," and ended with, "Full replacement, inspection by city, detectors upgraded per new code." The firemen left with a clatter that sounded like a song they were tired of playing. The meter in my head stopped thumping the way it thumped when Scout hit my door. By noon, Miss Rosen had sent a message that did not read like Miss Rosen. It said, "We will proceed with full modernization. I have authorized immediate work, new detectors on all floors, and a safety protocol to be posted in the lobby." The signatures still tried to pretend she'd made this decision on a white couch with matching pillows, but the content sounded like a person who had almost lost a thing she owned and learned how to like it again. That afternoon she called me, which is something she only does when she needs a name to put in a box that might cost money. "Michael," she said. "Miss Rosen is the only person on earth who uses my given name when speaking to me and not about me. I want to make you superintendent officially, not just live in handy. We'll add a stipend, expand your authority for safety purchases, and consult you on maintenance planning." She said the last part like she'd swallowed a spoon, but she said it. "Thank you," I said, and filed the gratitude into the place where a boy named Mike keeps things he pretends he doesn't want. We put new detectors on every floor and in the basement, the kind that don't require you to blow into their faces to get them to decide whether to wake up. I ordered a personal meter I could clip to my belt, insurance for my future that looked like a Lego piece, and made my mother stop telling me to find a different job when I call her twice a week. We posted a laminated sign by the mailboxes: "Smell gas. Do not turn anything on. Do not use elevator. Call 911 and Gas Co. Evacuate to sidewalk." We practiced it on a Saturday morning, and the kids made it a game, and the adults made it a ritual, and everyone found the stairs with their feet and not their fear. Mrs. Patel came by with Scout and a shopping bag she pretended was light. Inside was the blue towel, now cut neatly into a bandana with hemmed edges and his name stitched in white like a parade. There was also a small brass plaque wrapped in tissue paper. "Scout Alert, 0317, it said. I held it by the corners and felt ridiculous and then not ridiculous at all. "Would you mind if we put this up?" she asked. "He's just a dog, but he told me what I didn't know how to hear." We mounted it in the lobby next to the clock that had been wrong for years and had finally told the truth when it mattered. I took it down briefly and replaced its batteries and its stubbornness and put it back and said to it, like a man bargaining with a roulette wheel, "Do me the favor of being wrong again." The tenants formed the kind of committee that never writes minutes and always accomplishes more than the loud ones. A donation jar appeared on the front desk of the coffee shop for the gas workers who came in afterward and left their own dollar. The building bought Scout a proper water bowl with rubber feet so it wouldn't skate the tile and spill. The no pet sign stayed, but someone, Mrs. Carter I suspect, drew in parentheses beneath it, "Unless you're saving us." Ms. Rosen had a brass key made with a plastic tag that said, "Super." It was a small thing and a large thing at the same time. My father would have made a joke about how we can't resist telling the world who we are, even when it doesn't ask. This is what it looks like now. Saturday morning drills with kids who think the cones are lava and the stairwell is a mountain. Laminated cards in English and Spanish near the mailboxes that say smell equals sulfur/egg, and then 3 big don'ts and 2 do's. A boiler that hums like a man who finally decided to get therapy. Detectors that blink green like deliberate calm. Scout stops by on his rounds. The bandana has learned his neck. He presses his head to my thigh like he's checking if I'm still there. I set the bowl down and say, "Inspector," and he does a tiny wag that he holds like he doesn't want to brag. Mrs. Patel says thank you in a tone that has moved from shaky to a thing with bones. When it rains now, my chest does not do the thing it used to do, where it climbs my throat to check if anyone I love is under a porch and needs my hands. Mrs. Carter calls me hero when she thinks I can't hear her, which is usually when I am 6 inches away tightening a screw. I shake my head and fix the screw, and she shakes her head back like I am hopeless, and we both get to be right. The blue towel hangs from a hook inside the laundry room like a flag that doesn't make too big a deal of itself. The plaque sits in the lobby, and people look at it when they don't know where else to put their gratitude. The clock is unreliable again, and I forgive it the way you forgive a friend who only shows up when it counts. On the first clear night after the new boiler sang for the first time, I stood in the lobby with the lights off and the street leaking in through the glass like a quieter kind of ocean. I said, "Good night, building," because it's what I say now, and it has become both absurd and sacred. Scout, who had arrived with Mrs. Patel to pick up a package she'd had delivered there because hers had been stolen twice, barked once. A single declarative note, not alarm and not nothing. I turned and understood without words. "Water bowl." "Got it," I said, and picked it up and rinsed it and set it upside down on the radiator to dry. He watched, satisfied that the man in the lobby had met his standard. We have a language now. Bark, bull. Bark, door. Bark, person. Bark, dangerous gas. I don't need to know all of it to trust the parts I do. Sometimes I catch myself wanting to write Ms. Rosen one of those emails that would make both of us laugh to keep from snarling. Strongly recommend getting a scout for every building in the portfolio. But buildings get the dogs they deserve when they keep the doors open. People ask me what I did that night, like they want a list, and I give them the list. Smelled gas, didn't flip switches, opened doors, called 911 and the gas company, knocked, counted, waited, listened. It feels both insufficient and exactly right. They say, "You saved us," and I look at the plaque and the bandana and the mix of shoes by the door and say, "He did." They think I mean the dog, and I do, but I also mean the version of all of us who move when we are asked to. If this story did something small in you, if it made you check the detector near your kitchen or put a bowl by your radiator for the neighborhood inspector, let me know where you're watching from. Tell me the last time you opened a door and said, "In here, buddy," to anything at all. Follow the channel for more stories like this, about buildings and people and the ways we keep each other intact. I'll be downstairs, listening for the bark I'm supposed to hear, with a blue towel and a plan.